They told me it wasn't personal, just business. A quiet pay cut, no warning, no reason. I didn't fight back. I walked away and built something so big they never saw it coming. For a while, I really thought I'd found my place. I was 27, hungry to prove myself, and I didn't mind the long hours or the impossible deadlines. I thrived on pressure. Most nights, I'd be the last to leave the office, laptop still open, half a coffee left cold beside me. People noticed. At least I thought they did. My manager once called me the future of the company. I held on to that for months. It felt like more than praise, it felt like a promise. I stopped looking at other jobs. I stopped asking questions. I gave more than was asked because I believed it would all come back around someday. And for a while it did. I got the corner cubicle. I was pulled into meetings with higher-ups. My ideas started shaping actual projects. When they handed me a junior team to lead, I called my dad right after. He didn't say much, but I could hear the pride in his silence. My whole life started to orbit around that job. I lost touch with old friends. I stopped dating. I convinced myself that I was building something bigger than social plans and weekend breaks. I had a purpose. But looking back, I realize now, I was also blind. Blind to the shifting glances in meetings. Blind to how quickly the tone changed when I walked into a room. There were quiet signs, soft red flags, but I brushed them off. I thought I was indispensable. And maybe that was my mistake. Because success, at least in that company, wasn't about how much you gave. It was about how quietly you obeyed. Still, back then, I wore my company badge like it was stitched into my skin. I believed loyalty meant security. I believed if you did right by people, they'd do right by you. But belief doesn't always match reality. And soon enough, mine was about to be shattered. Silently, suddenly, and without warning. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Nothing dramatic, no closed-door meeting, no hushed conversation, just an email subject line, compensation adjustment update. I remember blinking at it for a second, wondering if it was a mistake. It had no warning, no context, just a polite little paragraph from HR full of soft language that somehow made it worse. Budget constraints, role restructuring, hope you understand. They didn't even call me in. They just cut my pay. 20% gone. No performance issues, no missed targets. In fact, I just wrapped a huge project that delivered ahead of schedule. I thought I'd be getting a bonus. Instead, I sat there staring at the screen, feeling like someone had punched a hole through my chest. It wasn't just about the money, it was what it said without saying it. You're not as important as you think. I tried to keep calm. I replied with a request to talk. They said the decision was final. I asked for clarity. They sent back a pre-written FAQ. I wasn't even worth a conversation. By the end of the day, I wasn't angry yet. Not really. I was stunned. Numb, I kept replaying moments in my head, meetings I'd led, nights I'd stayed late, all the extra work I'd done when no one else would. I told myself there had to be some mistake, that someone would call me, fix it, say something that made it make sense. But no one did. The office felt different after that. I noticed how people avoided eye contact, how my name wasn't mentioned in meetings where it used to be. It was like the company had already decided I didn't matter, and now everyone else was catching up to the script. That night, I didn't stay late. I packed up right at 6, walked out into the cold air, and just stood there. My hands were shaking. Something had shifted, and though I didn't know it yet, this was the beginning of the end. Not just for my job, but for the version of me that believed loyalty was enough. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever faced. I woke up feeling hollow, like the part of me that thrived on purpose was drained. The pay cut wasn't just a number, it was a message, and it echoed in my mind over and over. I started watching myself at work, trying to understand what I'd done wrong. Was I not working hard enough? Was I a problem they wanted to get rid of quietly? The questions ate at me. I stopped talking to my team. I avoided meetings. Even my manager, the one who called me the future, started treating me like dead weight. I felt humiliated. I was the guy who stayed late, who gave everything, now reduced to a cautionary tale whispered behind closed doors. I could almost hear the whispers. Look what happens when you don't know your place. At home, I was restless. I replayed every interaction, every decision. I went through the motions, but the fire inside me, my confidence, was smothered. I even thought about quitting, walking away before it got worse, but that scared me more. What was I without this job, without the identity I'd built around it? One night I found myself scrolling through old messages from my closest coworkers, Jake and Sam. They'd always been there, quieter voices but steady and real. I realized I hadn't talked to them about this. Not really. So I messaged them. The replies came quickly: concern, support, frustration. They felt it too. They'd seen the same signs, felt the same cold shift in the company culture. That night I didn't feel so alone. But I also knew that things couldn't go on like this. Something had to change. I couldn't keep drowning in the silence and the sting of betrayal. I wasn't sure what the next step was. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to stay in this company anymore. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going to disappear quietly. After that night, everything started to change. Slowly, quietly, but with purpose. Jake and Sam and I began meeting after work. At first, it was just to vent, to share our frustrations without the fear of being judged or overheard. The cafe near the office became our refuge, a place where we could breathe and speak freely. We talked about how the company was changing, how it no longer felt like home, how the loyalty we had shown was met with cold indifference. But those talks didn't stay just about complaints for long. One evening, after hours of hashing out ideas and frustrations, Jake said something that hit me hard. If they won't value us, why don't we build something that does? It was like a spark ignited. Sam nodded, eyes bright with a mix of excitement and fear. We already know what the market needs. We've seen the gaps. We have the skills. Why wait for permission? I was hesitant at first. The safety of my paycheck still weighed on me. But the more we talked, the more the idea grew: our own company, built from the ground up on our terms. The dream felt impossible and reckless, but it was ours. It was a flicker of hope in the dark. We started small, sketching out plans on napkins, brainstorming product ideas, talking about who we knew that might believe in us. We promised each other one thing: no matter what, we'd keep this secret for now. We'd build quietly behind the scenes, away from prying eyes and corporate spies. I felt something I hadn't felt in months: a rush of excitement, a reason to get up in the morning again. But I also knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge was yet to come. We started building the company in stolen moments and hidden corners. Late nights after work, weekends lost to endless brainstorming and coding marathons. The office was still my day job, but my nights belonged to this new dream. It wasn't easy. We were exhausted, physically and mentally. Our energy was stretched thin between two worlds, and the risk felt enormous. If anyone found out, we could lose everything. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, balancing the loyalty we once believed in with the growing fire to break free. There were moments when I wanted to give up, when the stress crushed me and I questioned if this secret project was worth it. The pay cut still haunted me. Bills piled up. I felt like I was living two lives, one as the golden boy who'd been betrayed, and the other as the uncertain rebel chasing a fragile hope. Jake and Sam were my lifelines. We shared our fears and doubts honestly. Sometimes it was all we could do to keep each other motivated. We reminded ourselves why we started. We imagined the day when we'd no longer have to hide, when our company would stand tall, our company. Slowly, progress came. The product began to take shape. Features we believed in, built for real people with real problems. We tested, failed, fixed, and tested again. Every small victory felt like a triumph over the shadow of the old company that had cast us aside. I couldn't talk about any of it openly, but inside I was growing stronger. The betrayal that once crushed me was fueling my resolve. I wasn't just building a company, I was reclaiming my worth. But even as the dream grew, the fear didn't disappear. We were walking into the unknown, and sometimes it felt like the shadows might swallow us whole. Still, every night I told myself, this was our chance, our moment to rewrite the story they thought was finished. After months of quiet work, the time finally came to make a choice: stay hidden forever or take a risk that could change everything. Our little startup was ready for its first real test: pitching to investors. The thought of standing in front of strangers, exposing our dream, was terrifying. What if they laughed? What if they saw us as just three desperate employees trying to rebel? But we knew we had to try. There was no turning back. The night before our first pitch, I barely slept. My mind raced with every possible outcome: success, failure, rejection. I felt the familiar sting of doubt, but deep down, I knew something else. This was more than a business. It was proof that we could rise from being overlooked, that we could fight back without bitterness. When the day came, I stood under the harsh lights, heart pounding, palms sweaty. Jake and Sam stood beside me, steadfast, ready. We told our story, not just about a product, but about being ignored and undervalued, about the company that cut our pay and left us behind, about the fire that pushed us to create something new. The room was quiet at first. Then questions came, tough questions, but we answered honestly with passion. We didn't try to hide our past, we made it our strength. When the meeting ended, we walked out unsure of what we'd earned. But inside, I felt a shift. We had taken the leap. And in the weeks that followed, the calls started coming. Investors interested, offers to help, support from people who believed in us. The fear didn't vanish, but the hope grew stronger. For the first time since that pay cut, I felt like I was winning. Not because I was back at the old company, but because I had built something they never saw coming. With investment secured, our little idea grew faster than I ever imagined possible. What started as secret late-night work became something real, something powerful. But success brought its own battles. The old company wasn't just going to watch quietly. Rumors started to swirl, whispers about us leaving, about betrayal, about competition. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me every time I walked into the office. My old coworkers looked at me differently. Some with envy, some with suspicion, and some with thinly veiled resentment. The company that once made me feel invisible was now watching a product born from my work and dreams take shape, and they didn't like it. It wasn't just the office politics. There were legal threats, emails filled with warnings about intellectual property and non-compete clauses. We were forced to tread carefully, navigating a minefield that threatened to destroy everything we'd built. The pressure was immense. I felt like I was being pulled in two directions, one foot still tied to the old life, the other stepping into a future I barely recognized. But through it all, I kept reminding myself why I started. This wasn't just about money or revenge. It was about proving that loyalty doesn't have to mean silence, that being pushed down doesn't mean you stay there. Jake, Sam, and I leaned on each other more than ever. We fought through doubts and setbacks, reminding ourselves that the hardest climbs lead to the best views. And slowly, the tides began to turn. Our product found users who believed in it. The market responded. Doors opened that we never thought possible. I was no longer just the guy who got his pay cut. I was the guy who built a company without their permission, without their support. After years of sleepless nights, endless pitches, and more setbacks than I can count, we finally stood on the edge of something incredible. Taking the company public was no longer just a dream, it was happening. The paperwork was thick, the meetings intense, and the pressure unbearable. Every detail mattered. One wrong move could ruin everything. But this time, it felt different. I wasn't just fighting for myself. Jake, Sam, our team, and everyone who believed in us were in this fight together. This wasn't just a company anymore. It was a symbol, proof that the underdog could rise, that those cut down could build something stronger. The day of the IPO, I sat in the conference room, heart pounding. Cameras, reporters, investors. It was overwhelming. But when the clock struck the hour and our stock went live, something inside me broke free. We had done it. We took the company public without them. Without the people who cut our pay, without the bosses who ignored us. I felt proud, but more than that, I felt free. This was more than a financial milestone. It was a victory over doubt, betrayal, and silence. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. And for the first time, the story was mine to tell. After the IPO, everything changed, but so did I. Success didn't erase the wounds from being cut down. It didn't erase the sting of betrayal or the nights I spent doubting myself. One afternoon, I found myself back at the old office, not as an employee, but as a founder who'd outgrown it. Walking those halls, I felt a strange mix of emotions: pride, anger, sadness, and something like closure. I ran into a few old colleagues. Some avoided me, others barely hid their surprise. It was clear the company never expected us to come this far. I thought about the people who made that choice to cut our pay, to dismiss us like we were nothing. Part of me wanted to confront them, to say everything I felt, but I realized it wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself what I was capable of. I knew now that loyalty was a two-way street. That sometimes, to grow, you have to walk away from people who don't see your value. That day, I felt lighter, because I wasn't defined by their decisions anymore. I was defined by my own. The journey from that painful pay cut to taking our company public wasn't just about business. It was about reclaiming my life. I learned something important. Setbacks don't have to be the end. Sometimes they're the start of something better. Today, I wake up with a sense of purpose I never thought possible. The fear and doubt that once held me back have been replaced by confidence and determination. Jake, Sam, and I are still building, still dreaming bigger every day. But now we do it on our own terms. The company we created isn't just a business. It's a testament to resilience and belief. And the best part, we did it without them. Looking back, I don't feel anger anymore. Instead, I feel gratitude, grateful for the challenge that pushed me to grow, to fight, and to rise. This is just the beginning, a new chapter filled with possibilities where I define my own success. Because sometimes, losing what you thought mattered most is the best thing that can happen.